Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how you can do AAA authentication. So AAA authentication, the first A stands for accounting, and the second A for authorization, and the third A for uh, authentication. So what that means is previously we've seen videos where we do SSH authentication, where we have the credentials of whoever is going to authenticate. Those credentials are stored in the device itself, okay, in the router or in the switch. Now we're going to do AAA authentication where the credentials are stored in the server. Okay, we have an attached server here. So it's a simple diagram. We have just a PC connected to a switch that is connected both to a router and the server. And the importance of AA authentication is because we want to be able to manage user access remotely instead of storing user access in every single device. We just have a one server where we can manage user access. Okay, so how are we going to get this thing done? It's going to be done in three parts. The first part is I'm going to bring up these devices. This is just the test environment that I created. I'm going to redo it completely from scratch. So I'm going to bring up those devices, and then I'm going to make sure there's connectivity amongst all the devices. And then the second step, I'll make sure that the SSH is locally available, because the way we want to set it up is we're going to create local database, okay, on every device. And then we're also going to create different set of users and credentials on the server, so that if the server is not available, we can at least always have access to those devices, even though the server is not available. But once the server comes back up, then those local database use credentials are no longer going to be able to use. So we're going to test all of that by shutting down this interface here, and I'm going to be able to show that that even if the remote server is not available, that we can at least use the local database of users in the devices. So all right, so we're going to start right away from the bring up the devices. Okay, so the first thing we're going to add the router. I'm going to use this router 2911, and then I'm going to add a switch. I'm going to use the 660, this one. Then I'm going to add a router, sorry, the PC, the server, PC and server actually. So there's a PC here, and then I'm going to add a server. Okay, now I'm going to connect all of them together. Okay, so they're all connected together. Now I have to configure them. This is going to be our gateway. So I'm going to give you an IP address of 192.168.10.1. So going to be our gateway. So just come here on Fast Ethernet jig 00. This one. Turn it on. 192.168.10.1. Okay, and then for this one, Fast Ethernet 10. I don't give an IP address. Actually, I'm going to create interVLAN IP address on this switch, and I'm going to give you an IP address of 10.2, so that at least can be able to ping the other the routers and the server and the PC. So first, the PC is going to be IP address for the PC is going to be 192.168.10.100. and the gateway is the router, not DNS server. This one is going to be, the server is going to be 10.200. Okay, DNS server. Stop right there, and then I'm going to label these devices. We'll call this one R1. R1. We'll call this one admin. Admin. And we call this, just call it a simple switch. And this is going to be our AA8 server. And then also we're going to give each device its IP address. .1, .100, .200. And next we're going to have to create configure interface VLAN 1 on this switch and give it an IP address of 192.168.10.2. So going to the switch. No. Give me a host name of switch. Then we create the interface VLAN 1. Interface VLAN 1. No short. IP address 192.168.10.2. Okay. So there, we'll try to ping from this switch. We try to ping the router, the PC, and the server. First, we ping the PC, the router. Okay. In response, we're going to ping the PC, which is .100. Okay. On response. Now we're going to ping the server. Okay. So now there's full connectivity between all the devices. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have to configure SSH on the PC and on the router. Sorry, we're going to configure SSH on the router and on the switch with local database credentials, so that if the server is not available, that at least we're going to be able to have access to these devices. Okay, so that's the basis of it. So I'm going to start by configuring on the router and then on the switch. So I'm going to go to the router, the CLI of the router. Go to the terminal, call the host name R1. And then we want to give enable password. Enable password. Let's call this enable password. Okay, we're going to call it Kijatin. Okay, you have to make sure the enable password is correct. So let's give maybe Cisco. a simple password, Cisco, just Cisco 23321. Okay, that's the enable password. What does the enable password do? When you log into the router, it's going to prompt. It's not, the enable password is going to transition you from the enable mode to the privilege mode. Okay, the privilege mode is where you're able to configure the router and do other configurations on the router or the switch. So the enable password is the one that permits you to transition from that initial login mode where you cannot do anything, you can configure, to the real privilege mode with this pound key symbol. Okay. So, anyways, so the enable password is Cisco 321. Okay, and then we're going to say no IP domain. No IP domain name. IP domain lookup. Then we'll give a username. We're going to give a username of, we'll just say, call it user1. And we're going to give a privilege mode, privilege level of 15, which means the user one can be able to do everything on the router, configuration and everything. Okay. So, and then the password for that user one is going to be, let's call it admin 123. Okay. Admin 123 is the password, right? So, enter. I think, okay, I missed. Should be secret. Okay, secret admin 123. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to say IP domain name. Call it r1.local. This is a simple, this is local, this is normal SSH configuration. Okay. Then we'll create a crypto key. Crypto key. Generate. RSA. Question mark. Okay. Enter. So we're going to give a crypto key of 2048. Okay. This is the size. Okay. Crypto key has been created. Crypto key has been created and enabled for SSH 1. Okay. So I'm going to allow for SSH version 2, IP SSH version 2. Okay. Now go to the V2I mode. Device 04. Line V2I 04. So interface V2I. Okay. Login locker, which means we'll be able to log in locally to this router. Transport input SSH. There are several types, but we want SSH. And then we could also configure the LAN console. It's not mandatory, but it's better to avoid all those annoying messages that okay, this is not mandatory. Line console 0, login synchronous, exec time 0. Okay, that's not mandatory, but it's important. So now we set up the local database for this router to be reached locally, okay, through SSH. So the local database permits this router to be reached remotely, sorry. But that's not the goal of this lab. The goal of this lab is to make sure that we can be able to log in to this router with database user database on a remote server. So we're getting there. So we have to test this. Okay, we can test it right now. Let's just exit out of there. Let's see. Save it. If I go into this PC and I try to go, let's go to SSH here. Okay, I put the host name. Hostname IP is 192.168.10.1, and I put the username. Username was user1. Okay, user1. All right. If I say login, I'm going to prompt for a password, which we said was admin 123. Okay, so it goes straight into privilege mode. Okay, so I'm going to exit out of there. So we know it's done, it's working. Now I'm going to do this exact same configuration for local database access on SSH. Just the same configuration I did on the router, I'm going to do the same on the switch. Okay, I'm going to quickly do that one off camera and off camera, and then I'll get back to you. So I went ahead and made completed the SSH configuration on the switch just the same way I did on the router. So if you open up the switch and do show IP SSH, see SSH is configured on this switch. Okay, SSH configured, SSH version 2 is configured on this switch. So let's try to test it. We'll go into the router, into the PC, and we'll go to SSH. The IP that we gave for this switch was 192.168.10.2, and the username, same as in the local database username is user1. Okay, so if we do, going to come for a password. The password we gave was admin 123. Admin 123. Oh, I think I made an error in typing the password, so I have to double check that quickly. I guess I found the error that I had. Instead of just fixing that error, let me show you exactly what error I had. To show you that error, I have to go first to the router. If I go to the router, I do show run. Okay, so the router, we said we can log in to this router with local database, okay? And we can log in using SSH. Now, the local database that we set for this router had a username of user1 and the password of which is now is hidden. It's admin123. That's what it did for the router, and that was working. Now on the switch, I think I left that one out. I forgot completely. Show run. So what happened is on the switch, I said, okay, we're going to log into this router with online VTY 0 through online VTY 0 and 4. And we're going to log in using SSH. But how we're going to log in with what database, it wasn't actually defined. I think I just kind of typed this with an error. So let's fix it right away. So let's go configure terminal, line VTY 0 to 4, login. I don't know what I typed, but in any case, there was something there. Login local. That's the fix. Go out of there, save, show run again, just to be sure. Okay, Okay, so the difference now is login lockup. Okay, before we're seeing just login. I don't know why. I think I just forgot to complete the command. So now our SSH should work. Let's go to the PC, and then we put in the IP address of the switch, 192.168.10.2. I'm going to give the username user1. Okay, connect. Password is admin 123. Okay, so now we can log in. So we can log into this switch and the router. Now we can log into this switch and the router because we know what usernames and passwords are in the individual devices. Okay, so that's not the goal of our video today. We want to be able to store username credentials on a remote server. Okay, so that any user who wants to get into these devices must have their credentials on this AAA server. Okay, so that's not been configured yet. That's going to be the goal of our configuration, and we will make sure that the credentials we put on the AA server are different from the ones that are here. Okay, so we have user one and user one. Okay, those are the same credentials I put on the router and the switch to access them locally with local. So now I'm going to create new credentials on the AA server. Okay, so let's get in there. And by the way, I'm going to use both Radius and TACACS. Okay, I'm going to use both Radius and TACACS for accessing these devices. So first, I'm going to access the configure AA for R1 with TACACS, and then I'm going to configure AA for the switch using Radius. Okay, so let's get into the configuration on the server. We go to services. Okay, go to AAA. All right, so this is we're going to start the configuration. So you see AA is not enabled here. So first we're going to have to give the client. So to the server, router and switch are clients. Okay, so this is the server. So this is a client. You have the switch is a client and the router is a client. So the first client is going to be a router. Let's call it R1, and R1's IP address is 192.168.10.1. And we're going to have to provide a key for the TACACS server. So let's call it key 123. Okay, and as I said, for the router we're going to use TACACS. Okay, so we're going to add. That's added. Now we're going to do the same thing for the switch, but now we're going to use Radius. Okay, so we're going to log into the switch using Radius server. So I'm going to call this one switch. That's W. IP address is 192.168.10.2. And then we'll provide the same key 123. Of course, in a production environment, you have to be more prudent. You don't have to give the same keys or even obvious keyframes. You have to provide more secure credentials. So for the switch, we're going to use Radius instead of TACACS. So I say add. Okay, so we have Radius and TACACS. Now the usernames that are going to be stored on this AA server. Let's call the first user user 2. Passwords for this user 2 is going to be Cisco let's call it admin 456. Okay, we're going to call it admin 456. That's user 1. Password is admin 456. Let's add another user 3. User 3. The password for that one, let's use the same password 456. Okay, I don't want to use a lot of this is a demo. In a real environment, of course, you're not going to be using the same password, the same obvious credential. So anyways, add this user, and that's it for the server. Now we have to configure AA on the router and then test it. Okay, and then configure AA on the switch and then test it. All right, let's configure AA on the router. Open the router CLI mode. CLI mode, we do configure terminal. Then we're going to say AAA new model. Okay, that's how you start the AA configuration. New model, AA new model, enter. And then we're going to use a TACACS server, okay, on the router. So we say TACACS server, use the host name, the host for the server. Okay, the host for the server is 192.168.10.200. Okay, then we'll give the key that we gave on the TACACS key. It was key, capital key, 123. Okay, that's what we gave. TACACS server. Okay, enter. Yeah, I think I missed something there. Okay, yeah, I have to say key. And then I give the key 123. Okay, enter. Now we're going to do AAA authentication. The authentication login. The default. So we're going to say we're going to be defaulting to AAA. Okay, we're going to default into AAA login and using group TACACS. Okay, and if group TACACS fail, that if the TACACS is not available, we should be able to log in locally. Okay, that's what this means now. Local. Let me make it long. Okay, so what this means is we're going to authenticate using TACACS by default. And if TACACS is not available, we should be able to log in using the local database. Okay. Now, next statement, we're going to say we're going to authenticate with AAA. Authentication. Okay, enable. Okay, we're going to enable because we want to log into the TACACS even when the that's using the enable password. Okay, we're going to use the enable password to log into TACACS as well. So it makes it a little bit more secure, and that's going to be by default. Okay, using the group TACACS. Okay, and if that fails, we should be able to log in locally as well with local database. Okay, so the statement means so both statements actually look the same. They look the same, but they don't mean the same thing. Okay, so our default login to this router is going to be using TACACS, and if TACACS fails, we use a local database. But when each time we log in, we have to be able to go past the enable mode. Okay, with the enable mode, login is going to be by default using TACACS, and if it fails, we use the local database. All right. So enter. Now we're going to do this. We're going to have to enable this on the VTY lines. Okay, line VTY 0 to 4. I'll say login authentication by default. We're going to use the by default login. Okay, let's see what options are there, but I think okay, yeah. So by default, because we said we're going to log in by using the TACACS by default, so that's what we need there. So yeah, So that's it for the router. The router is configured. You can just do show run. Okay, we have all the statements there. A new model, this is the A authentication login default, group TACACS local, and this other statement, and then also a statement down here that defines where the TACACS server is actually located. So that's it for it. We can now test it. Okay. The first thing we want to test is I think I'm going to make this video a little bit I'm going to make 2 videos out of this. So I'm going to stop after the TACACS and then I make another video for the radius. Otherwise, it's going to be too long. So so let's test it right now, and we're going to first test by using the local database on the router. Okay, it should fail because we said once TACACS is enabled, the user database on this router for login, for SSH login, would not work. Okay, so let's go into the router, onto the PC, and test with the local database first. So it's going to be 192.168.10.1. Okay, let's try with user 1, which is the local database. User 1, let's say connect. Okay, I'm going to type the password that we set, which is admin123. Okay, that fails. Okay, that fails because we have enabled TACACS by default. So if I even type it again, admin, so it's going to keep failing all the time. But if I do the same thing using the TACACS user base, okay, because we said on TACACS we had user 1, user 2 with admin 456, user 3, admin 456. Okay, so I'm going to use any one of them to log in. Okay, now AA should work. Okay, I'm going to go back here. Okay, let's see. 192.168.10.1. Okay, so I'm going to use user 2 now. User 2 should work. Okay, so I'm going to type admin 456, enter. Okay, now it prompts me for the that's it. We're in the router, but we are in the enable mode. Okay, which means we cannot do configurations, we cannot do anything. So if I do enable, remember the enable password I talked about, enable, do enter. So it's going to ask me for the enable password, okay, which we set to Cisco 321. Okay. Okay. Anyways, let me use the same password set on the okay. Okay. I think I made an error here. Alright guys, I found what was the error. What's going on is that the enable password I set here, should correspond to the same password I had on the AA server. Okay, because the reason is because when you log into the router using AA and then you get into the enable mode, it's going to if you want to go to the privilege mode, it prompts for a username. Okay, so the username must be the username on the AA server. And when you give that username, it prompts for a password, which is the same password in this AA server. So you cannot have a different password for enable mode in the device itself. So that's the reason. So I went in here and made sure that the enable password for the router is the same password that I have for on the AA server. Okay, that was a trick. So now if I go into the router, into the PC, I do SSH 192.168.10.1. I do user 2, which is the username in the AA server. I do connect. It's going to ask for password, which is admin 456, enter. So I'm in the enable mode. I cannot do configuration. I can't do anything. To move to the privilege mode where I can do configurations, I have to do enable. Okay. So it's going to ask prompt for a username now. Okay. When it prompts for username, I have to type user2. Okay. That's how I logged in, user2. And then prompts for a password, admin 456. Okay. So I'm in the router right now with the privilege mode. So I can do configure terminal, I can do configuration, I can do whatever I want to do. So that's it. It works for this router. In our next video, we're going to log into the switch using Redis server. It's going to be the same process, but I want to stop the video here because it's not too long. And then after doing that, we're going to do another test, which is to shut down this interface coming from the server, so that the local database access to our switch and our router should be used for remote logging. Okay, so that's it for this video. Thanks very much for watching, and talk to you next time.